And as you know, politics means politics divide and rule. Politics don't show people God.
There are a lot of conspiracy theories about your father, Bob Marley.
Same.
And there was one that I've heard over the years that your father was assassinated by an ex-CIA agent who was an assassin, said to be they pricked cancer in your dad's foot to assassinate him. Is that true?
I mean, one thing I do know for sure, they attempted the assassination on my father's life, you know.
The CIA would look upon the radical political content of reggae music as dangerous.
So Bob Marley's chilling warning about the CIA and false idols is going viral, and fans are freaking out. In a resurfaced interview, the reggae legend doesn't hold back, calling out powerful systems and hinting at a deeper, darker truth behind his music and message. But here's where things get wild. A lot of folks are now fully convinced that Bob was targeted exactly because of this. There's a mountain of shady evidence, confessions from former hitmen, questionable coincidences, and much more to support those claims. But the real shocker, even Bob's son, Damian Marley, is speaking up, and he thinks the internet is right on the spot. Just what did Bob say? And does Damian really believe the conspiracy theories? Let's find out.
You dig? The system that separates people, that's the day.
One of Bobby's old interviews from back in the day has been making rounds on the internet, and it's got people talking. Why? Because the singer talked about politics. Those who knew Bob were well aware of how he always steered clear of politics. It wasn't a topic that he wanted to dabble in, given the circumstances in Jamaica. But in this one interview, Bobby openly said that politics exists to divide people.
And as you know, politics means politics divide and rule. Politics don't show people God. Politics tell you that somebody can do something fair. You know, what we know is God that do everything. So the best man to deal with is God. When you deal with God, you don't deal with politics, because politics divide and rule.
Bobby also went on a rant talking about herbs. FYI, Bob was hailed as a Rastafarian icon everywhere, and he was big on herbs. But the government banned herbs, and that didn't sit right with Bob.
We who accept herb is important, but herb is more important to the people who don't accept it yet, because that is the reality. I mean, it's not selling selling is something that you crave, but you check it in a sense and say, herb is a plant. I mean, herbs are good for everything. Why these people who want to do so much good for everyone, who call themselves governments and this and that, why them say you must not use the herb? You see? And we check that and we can't find, we just see them just say, no, you must use it because it make you rebel. Against what?
Bobby didn't seem to believe in these rules, especially from a government that didn't hesitate to promote war and instead brought the hammer down on herbs that made people feel better.
Who the guy is. Because my right is my right, like my life. You know, all I have is my life. That means if I can say, I don't want that or I don't want this. When I check it out, the biggest man was a baby one time. So I don't know where he get all of these big ideas, want to be rulers over people. You see? And help enforce devilism. Can't dig it. Can't take it. We're a rebel, man. We're revolutionaries.
Notice how Bobby accused the government of promoting devilism? It was clear that he was anti-establishment. In fact, some people believe that Bob used these interviews to warn the people about the CIA, false idols, and the government.
Anti-establishment. You mean we don't like establishment? Well, yes. Everything. You see, the music say dead to black and white oppressors, to all oppressors. You know, we deal with human beings, we deal with the purpose why God created man in the first place, and how man should live. And we, these people, want to live like how God said man should live.
His songs were no different. Instead of singing about the fast life and illegal substances, Bob chose to send people warnings through his tracks. Check out the lyrics for his song, Rat Race, where he sings, "Political violence fill your city. Yeah, don't involve Rasta in your say I'm saying Rasta, don't work for no CIA." In his eyes, these organizations were directly responsible for the people's suffering. Worst of all, they were trying to recruit artists like Bob to do their dirty work.
But the majority of the world suffer. Masses of the people suffer. And this music comes from the masses of the people. You know, it don't really come from up class.
So the question that most people are asking is whether Bobby was really onto something. Well, the short answer is yes.
I believe the CIA was using the Jamaican Labor Party as its instrument in the entire campaign against the Michael Manley government. I'd say most of the violence was coming from the Jamaica Labor Party side, and behind them was the CIA in terms of getting the weapons in and getting the money in with all the propaganda guidance, because there was a steady stream, a continuous campaign of propaganda against the Manley government.
During the Cold War, the U.S. was seriously worried about communism spreading through the Caribbean, and Jamaica happened to be on their radar. The U.S. was committed to stopping the Soviets from gaining influence, and so behind the scenes, the CIA was working overtime to back certain politicians and spread anti-communist messages to sway public opinion. It sounds like a big conspiracy theory, but over the years, several reports and insiders have backed the theories about the CIA pulling the strings behind the scenes. Particularly back in 1976, Jamaica was gearing up for a tense election. On one side, there was Michael Manley leading the People's National Party, PNP, with strong ties to Cuba and communist ideals. He partnered up with Fidel Castro and implemented socialist programs that would benefit the Jamaican people instead of American companies and investors. On the other hand, Edward Seaga led the Jamaican Labor Party and was tight with the U.S. government. So to make sure that people voted for Edward, the CIA resorted to using all means possible, which included violence. There was a significant rise in violence in the day leading up to the election, and the CIA was behind most of it. They called it the destabilization program, and before you call it a wild conspiracy theory, take a seat. Former CIA case officer Philip Agee blew the whistle on the program, revealing 2 American officials working in Jamaica who he said could be involved in work for the CIA. John Stockwell, another former CIA worker, had something similar to say.
Richard Nixon instructed the CIA in a meeting which was in 1970 in the White House, and there was a document in the Senate report which is reprinted, and he said, "Make the economy scream." Those were his words. And that's of course what the CIA proceeded to do in Chile, and that's what they also did in Jamaica.
They also furnished a lot of munitions and assistance to the terrorist squads that were going around killing people in the cities and also in the countryside in Jamaica as well.
That's correct.
Well, John, you had a trip down to Jamaica, and you saw a lot of these things about Jamaica with your own eyes, right?
Yes, indeed. A very moving, a very interesting trip to me to see a target country at a time in the height of a CIA operation when I was completely outside. So there's no way that I could see the problem that journalists have always had when the U.S. government was targeting on a country in a situation, trying to destabilize it, overthrow or manipulate the elections or whatever, of trying to figure out what's going on.
What's more, the Jamaican government identified 15 Americans in Jamaica working as CIA agents under the destabilization program. But how does Bobby's music tie into everything? Well, for the CIA, it was a threat.
The CIA would look upon the radical political content of reggae music as dangerous because it would help to create a consciousness among poor people, among the great majority of Jamaicans. And of course, naturally, the climate was created for an attempt on Bob Marley's life.
See, Bob was a big deal in the country. Time called him a political force to rival the government. And so all eyes were kinda on him. His stamp of approval for a particular party could have easily decided the elections. But like we said, Bob wasn't about politics. Instead, he was about bringing people together. And so Bob decided to go ahead with something called Smile Jamaica. He wanted to spread his message of peace. But when Prime Minister Michael Manley suddenly announced national elections just 10 days after the show was scheduled, things got messy fast. What's more, some of his earlier songs had been banned by the government and Bob had no choice to agree. And that's why people started assuming Marley was taking sides, even though he wasn't. That assumption brought devastating consequences for Marley. 2 days before the concert, gunmen stormed Marley's home at Hope Road. Shots were fired and Marley was injured. His wife took a bullet to the head but survived because of her deadlocks. He was rushed to the hills, hidden away at Chris Blackwell's estate, guarded by police and loyal Rastas. The chances of him performing at the concert seemed slim, but despite everything, Marley chose to go on with the show. He knew the country needed a message of unity more than ever. The concert was a success. Prime Minister Manley made an appearance as well and was boosted on the stage. However, after the concert, one question lingered in the air: who had attempted to take out Marley? Well, most folks think the CIA was behind it. Now it sounds like a conspiracy theory, but you might want to hold your horses. Years after his passing, Bill Oxley, a former agent of America's Central Intelligence Agency, revealed the truth about the incident and Bob's passing. Bill worked for the CIA for 29 years as a top security operative. During this time, he carried out 17 high-profile murders listed by the U.S. government between 1974 and 1985. But when he was on his deathbed after receiving a fatal cancer diagnosis, the former CIA agent decided to come clean to the public, including the truth about Bob's passing. It seems extreme, but Bob was a patriot. He said, "I believed in the CIA, and I did not question the agency's motivation. I have always understood that sometimes sacrifices must be made for the greater good." As for how Marley ended up on his radar, Bill said, "He was creating a revolution that used music as a more powerful tool than bullets and bombs." Bob Marley in 1976 was a very serious threat to the global status quo and to the hidden power agents implementing their plan for a new world order. As far as the agency was concerned, Bob Marley was very successful, very popular, very influential, a Jamaican Rastaman who began using his funds and fame to support causes around the world that were in direct conflict with the CIA. To be honest, he signed his own death warrant. A chilling revelation, but this next part shook fans to their core. Bill said, "It's not like we didn't warn him. We sent some people to shoot his house in Kingston," Mr. Oxley says, referring to a night of shooting at the Marley mansion that left the singer with an injured arm and chest. "We had a message for him. We impressed upon him the importance of the situation in which he found himself. He didn't listen." And so, Bill confirmed that the CIA was behind the incident. But that's not all. The CIA had no plans to stop pursuing Marley. After the incident, Bob went into hiding in the Blue Mountains to prepare for the upcoming concert. According to Mr. Oxley, he used press credentials to enter as Bob Marley. He introduced himself as a famous photographer working for the New York Times and gave Bob Marley a gift. "I gave him a pair of All-Stars sneakers with a 10-centimeter nail. When he tried to put his foot straight into the sneaker, he let out a loud scream. That was it. His life was over there, and then the nail in the shoe was contaminated with viruses and cancer bacteria. If it penetrated the skin, it did it." There had been a series of high-profile assassinations of counterculture figures in the United States in the late 60s, early 70s. By the time Bob Marley came along, we thought finesse was the order of the day. No more bullets and splattered brains. After poisoning him, Bill kept in close contact with Marley, making sure that the medical advice Bob got in Paris, London, and the United States would hasten his death rather than cure him. Unfortunately, it worked. Bob passed away in May 1981 at the young age of 36. Honestly, Bill's confession was eye-opening, and it's not like he had any reason to lie. Not to mention his version of events had been confirmed by other sources like Bob's manager. Casey Gain McCalla, who wrote the groundbreaking book Inside the CIA's Secret War in Jamaica, also said this, HTTPS.
I would read a book from my grandmother called Marley and Me by Don Taylor, who was Bob Marley's manager, and in that book he would say that they actually caught some of the people who tried to kill Bob Marley, had shot him and, shot Don Taylor. And they had them in a kind of ghetto court, and under interrogation, some of the shooters admitted that the CIA paid them in guns and cocaine to try and assassinate Bob Marley.
Despite the clear-cut evidence, a lot of folks still shy away from believing the theory. For starters, Bob did get cancer in his toe, but he refused to get it treated. The doctors had suggested amputation to stop the spread of the disease, but in Bob's eyes, that was a sin against God, and so he chose to write his own fate. There are issues concerning the credibility of the website Your Newswire, which posted Bill's confession as well. See, the website was shut down years ago, and here's what the creator, Sean Adel Tabatabai, had to say about it. "When I closed Your Newswire down in late 2019 and moved to News Punch, the focus on what we would cover editorially changed, and it was decided that we would no longer cover unreliable conspiracies whilst also being much more responsible in fact-checking content before publishing." His statement cast a dark cloud on Bill's confession, with many people questioning its credibility, but none of it matters because Bob's own son believes that his father was taken out by the CIA. A couple of years ago, Damian was asked about what he thought of the conspiracy theories surrounding his father's passing.
There are a lot of conspiracy theories about your father, Bob Marley.
Sin.
And there was one that I've heard over the years that your father was assassinated by an ex-CIA agent who was an assassin, said to be they pricked cancer in your dad's foot to assassinate him. Is that true?
And guess what Damian said? He strongly believed that the government wanted to take out Bob because of his message about peace.
One thing I do know for sure, they attempted the assassination on my father's life, you know. The government did, you know, because of him trying to bring people together, you know.
And that's not all. Damian also brought up the shooting and confirmed that it was an attempt on his father's life. The fact that the higher-ups failed only pushed them to use more drastic measures to take out Bobby.
One thing I do know, man, if someone attempts to assassinate you and they fail the first time, okay, all right, that's it. Pack up, we're going home. So, of course, they try different ways and different mechanisms.
But why would someone want to assassinate someone for trying to bring people together?
Why did they have slaves? Why do they shoot us on the streets each day? At the end of the day, they don't really want people to unite. The day I'm speaking of, there's a system, you dig? The system that separates people. That's the day.
At the end of the day, Bob's passing is a mystery even years later. There were obviously a lot of pieces in play while Bob ruled the Jamaican music scene. And even though most folks turn their head away, if there's anything that the recent revelations about the industry has taught fans, it's that nothing is as simple as it seems. But what do you think? Was Bob really taken out by the CIA? And did he leave a warning for his fans? Let us know what you think in the comment section below, and make sure to check out this next video.